Welcome everyone, I'm Dr. Sam Spinelli, physical therapist and strength and conditioning coach with Citizen Athletics. Today we're going to be talking about dips. Dips are a fantastic exercise for developing your upper body pressing muscles. Commonly, a lot of individuals think that the dip is a dangerous exercise. So we're going to break down some of the myths that are around dips, as well as giving you a progression on how to do dips, and going through a full tutorial on how to execute the dip well. Now when we look at the dip, it is a good exercise for challenging the pecs, the delts, and the triceps. You can see that it's very similar to a lot of other pressing movements where we bring our elbow back and we press forward. Where it does definitely differ from some other pressing movements like push-ups and bench press is that the emphasis is really on taking our arms significantly further past our body and coming to our midline versus other movements where we start around midline and then just press forward out in front of us. So it's a pretty contrasting style of a pressing motion that puts a significantly more challenge on shoulder extension than other pressing movements. An advantage of dips that comes with this is that normally when we work a lot of these pressing movements like bench press and push-ups, we focus more on going through a shortened position of the pecs and the delts and the triceps. In contrast, when we do a dip, because we take our arm to such a further back degree of extension, we work on a long muscle length for the pecs, and this is an important consideration when we're looking at hypertrophy and strength adaptations. Now the dip is often thought to be an exercise that's going to trash your shoulders, wreck your rotator cuff, and it's understandable because some people, when they go to do this movement, are going to experience some discomfort as it does put an increased demand on shoulder extension. But there's not inherently any bad exercise, just exercises that are either appropriate for you or not appropriate, and ones that match up with your goals and don't match up with your goals. So the first thing is to ask, is the dip appropriate for you and does it align with your goals? If you're someone who isn't able to do a push-up very well, particularly a chest to floor push-up, you're probably not ready to do a dip, and instead you'd be better off focusing on push-ups and other sort of pressing movements where you can restrict the load much easier. In contrast, if you're someone who can do a push-up and you want to start working on developing your pecs, your delts, and your triceps, then the dip might be a good option for you. And the progression that we're going to show you today is going to help you get one if you can't do any. If, as I said, you can't do a push-up yet, start there. I'll put a link in the description box down below on how you can get your first push-up. And that's a video we previously made that gives you a full progression for push-ups. If you can do a push-up, but you don't have the strength or mobility yet to necessarily do a full dip, then the progression is going to be a great option for helping to develop the specific strength as well as the specific range of motion things that you need to work on, like shoulder extension. So let's talk about how to do a dip. To do a dip, we're going to start off by placing our hands on dip bars. Extend our elbows, have a minor forward lean, retract the shoulders slightly, have our legs tucked back or straight down, and then from here we can begin the descent. As we go down, you want to try to keep your shoulders back and keep your body angle forward. Your depth will depend on your range of motion and strength. Most people will stop around 90 degrees of an elbow bend, but it will depend also on the angle of your torso. As you have a greater degree of a forward angle, you can usually go a bit deeper. Try not to significantly round your back in the bottom. As you initiate the drive up, think to squeeze the handles together, not just push down into them. This will help to get more pec utilization. Now there's a few things that we can consider to help individualize this technique for each person. With the leg position, we can have them either tucked back, which is really the standard way most people will do it. You could also have them straight down, which is more common in gymnastics or when people are doing them on rings or bars. And then you could also have them tucked forward, but this is probably the way most people won't do it since it requires keeping a more vertical and upright torso, which can limit your depth and put more challenge on your shoulders. We can also look at a forearm angle. Generally, we'll have a vertical forearm, and this will keep an even distribution on the pecs, triceps, and delts. If you have a more forward forearm angle, where your shoulders shift further away from your hands, this will put more load on your shoulders and delts and put a more significant demand on shoulder extension. In contrast, if you let your elbows shift back, you'll go through greater degrees of elbow range of motion and put more load on your triceps. If we look at the dip from a front angle, we want to try to keep the elbows stacked over the wrists, not having them flare out significantly, as this can be problematic and stressful on some individuals' shoulders, and they might find that makes it irritable. There's also a lot of different devices that you can use to execute dips, such as dip bars, rings, or a straight bar. Rings are a good option, particularly if you want to have an increased demand on stability. A straight bar is the most awkward, but it's by far the most readily available. The dip bar setup is our best option for pumping out reps and really loading the movement, since the handles accommodate our body positioning and are the most stable to really load the movement up. Now that's the general technique, as well as a few ways you can individualize it to your specific goals. But what if you can't do a dip? What should you do? Well, this progression that we're going to outline is going to be a great option. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you can't do a standard push-up yet, start with that. And we'll have a video down in the description box below that you can utilize. But for now, let's check out the progression. The first movement in our progression is going to be the hands elevated deficit push-up. We chose this because it allows you to work on an increased range of motion by going through the deficit. As well, with the hands elevated, it reduces the relative demand, but lets you start working on that increased range of motion, which is a huge part of going into the dips versus most other pressing movements. So try to work on developing comfort in that range of motion before you move on to the more challenging options. From here, we're going to transition to bench dips. The first way that we're going to do them is with bent knees. So we'll have the bench behind us, letting our hips sit down, and a bent knee in front of us to help have leg assistance as we go down and move up. Progressively over time, you can try to use your legs less and less as you get more comfortable and develop more strength. You can adjust the depth that you go to by using your legs as you go closer to the bottom. As you find you're getting stronger with them, you can start to straighten your legs out and get into the bench dip with straight legs. This will start to load your upper body more, as well as allowing you to sink deeper into the range of motion. That way you're able to start to develop more shoulder extension and more strength in those positions. As you find that you can tolerate this well and you can crush these reps, then you can elevate your feet and get into the bench dip with feet elevated. This will again start to transition more loading onto your upper body and letting you really work on developing more range, as now you can sink your hips really low in this. Once you're crushing these, then you're ready to go into the dip with leg assistance. This takes us into now actually practicing the full pattern of a dip, but with reduced load and increased stability. You can put your feet on a chair behind you, and that way you can practice having those feet tucked back, and then just let your knees bend as you go down and use your legs to extend as you come back up. This lets you practice the pattern and start getting into the deeper ranges, but reduces the loading in the bottom position where most people are going to have the biggest challenge. As you find that you're getting stronger with it, you can take away the leg assistance and go to band assistance. By using this option, we're able to have assistance primarily only in the bottom position. As you do this though, we want to make sure that you save this for the end, not rushing to using bands too early and just really loading up the band assistance. Instead, you want to use this with the lightest band possible when you're just about able to do dips and you're really using it to just help you in the very bottom position. Once you're feeling confident with the band assistance and you feel like you don't need any more, then you just take it away and you're doing normal dips. As you progressively do regular dips and you get stronger with it, you can start to add weight. Now, if you're looking for an exact progression that you can try and utilize, something that we can recommend for a set and rep scheme would be to start off with a variation that you can do for about 3 sets of 6 reps, with about 1 to 2 reps left in the tank, and then start there. Each week that you do that, you can try to add 1 more rep to each set. So then you get to 3 sets of 7, 3 sets of 8, etc. Once you get to about 3 sets of 10 consistently, then try to move to the next movement in the progression. Hopefully about that time, you'll be ready to start doing it at about 3 sets of 6 and repeat that. So that way, if you were to start off with the first movement, you could do that for 4 weeks, progress to the next one, do that for 4 weeks, and keep on progressing until you got to the full dip. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful in explaining how to do the dip well, giving you a progression series to do it, and why it's not a dangerous movement. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button down below. It helps us out a ton. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe. We try to release at least 2 videos every week. See you in the next video.
Citizen Athletics.